Guillaume, how are you doing?
Very good, Vin. What about you?
I'm good. I'm fine. So let's just get right into it. Maybe a 30-second introduction for those that don't know you.
Hi, so my name is Guillaume Rondin. My journey to Vietnam started almost 10 years ago. After traveling in Asia for a couple of years, I felt a strong connection to Vietnam. The culture, the business opportunities, the friendly people made me actually choose this place. And over the year, I gotten deeper in the business opportunities and built a network that now are very helpful for my personal and my professional life.
Okay, so what were you doing in France, the country where you came from, before you came to Vietnam?
So before that, I was actually working as an IT person. So I was first working in a bank, in an investment bank, and then after I tried to launch a startup with a friend of mine, and I was more the CTO. So I was more the technical guy, the nerd behind his laptop to try to develop things. And then that startup, we failed it, but at least it gave me a first foot into the entrepreneurship life.
Okay, so how did Vietnam even come on the radar? How did that come as an idea for you to even think about?
So it was mostly traveling, when I started my digital nomad journey, I had some clients in France that I was working for as a freelancer. I had a couple of websites that I've been building along the years still when I was in France, so I could have a half passive income while exploring and then building up my entrepreneurial journey. And from that, I could basically put my entire life inside a laptop and then a backpack and then traveled mostly in Asia first because of the cost of living and then the exotic perspective that I had at this time.
Oh, I see. So when you landed in Southeast Asia, then you discovered Vietnam. Were you thinking, you didn't think about living in Vietnam first, right? You just probably thought about coming to visit, to travel.
Yeah, so probably for 2 years, 2 to 3 years, I was really bouncing around. So probably 2 months in Vietnam, then 2 months in Cambodia, 2 months in Kuala Lumpur, etc. And then after that, I started to spend more time in Vietnam, just because I really like the vibes in Ho Chi Minh City. And then step by step, I also got more along with the country, knowing more people there, and then start to build up some local connections and then some local business as well. So that's finally ended up spending more time and then settling really in the city after probably 2 years of travels in Asia.
All right, so when you first arrived in Vietnam, what were some of your impressions, good and bad?
So I would say the first thing that is shocking right when you go from the airport is the crowd, the mess, the noise. So that's something that from a first impression, it may be a bit overwhelming as a foreigner, especially when you come from a a small town in your country. The time that I grew up was 6,000 people. So you can imagine 6,000 people versus in Vietnam, it's almost 10 million inhabitants in the global megalopolis of Ho Chi Minh City. So that crowd, that mess, that chaotic environment is something that can be at the beginning overwhelming, but after the years, you start to actually like it. You start to actually like that around yourself there is always energy, that there is always optimism, people are going forward, the country years after years is getting better. So you have this environment around yourself that from my perspective is pushing me up.
Hmm. So I know you run Move to Asia, and we'll get to that in a minute, but when you just arrived in Vietnam, how were you able to make an income, a living in order to stay in Vietnam?
So we are talking about 8 years ago, right? So 8 years ago, I was still generating income from my e-commerce website. So I had probably 20 to 30 affiliate websites, mostly on the French market. So my job at this time was to build up an ecosystem of websites, getting traffic to my website through SEO, so search engine optimization. So basically, it's techniques that you implement to get visitors to your website from Google mostly. And this visitor, you're going to redirect it to affiliate offers. And each time my visitors was buying a product, I was getting a commission, a cut on that. And at this time, I got between 20 to 30 websites. Some of them I sold, some of them got penalized by Google because years after years you have the algorithm changing. But at this time, it was my main source of income.
Okay, so then what year was this when you kind of got settled in Ho Chi Minh City?
So I think I started to really spend more time in 2016, I would say.
Okay.
2016 to 2017. So at this time, settling in Vietnam long term was very easy. We talk about pre-COVID. So for a US citizen like yourself, you could get 1 year visa. So it was very easy to really come here with, they didn't ask for anything, no insurance, and they grant you 1 year visa. For French people at this time, I think it was 6 months. And then after COVID, they make the rules more strict. And now it's more difficult to live long term in Vietnam. You need either a work permit, you need to set up a business. That things got more strict after COVID.
Okay. And then you started to work on Move to Asia, which is your main project right now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So yeah, exactly, Vin. So Move to Asia is actually a company that has started firstly to target foreigners like myself who wanted to explore and to live in Asia. And finally, after the year, I managed to somehow tweak a bit the business, and I'm targeting right now more the SMEs and then the companies who are coming still to Asia but to explore business opportunities. So you can think about an SME that is having a product and they want to expand to Asia, they want to serve this growing market. You can think about companies that are on the opposite in the supply chain and they are sourcing products from this part of the world. And then I build up solutions and then services across different verticals to be able to support those companies into helping them to leverage the opportunities in Asia and specifically in Vietnam.
So what I understand is you do a lot of different things. So you maybe set up a business for somebody that's looking to expand in Vietnam. You've moved into sourcing, quality check, and things like that. So that's very interesting how you've been able to offer different types of services depending on the market.
Yeah, so I think one of our advantages is that we are doing a lot of content online. So through either YouTube or blog or a lot of media collaborations. And then thanks to that content creation, we get inbound leads. So years after years, I could get inquiries from different groups of people and then build up services to support their needs. So yeah, we can, for instance, set up businesses for foreign either entrepreneurs or companies. I have a network of lawyers here, accountants, so I can easily do that. And actually, Vin, about the sourcing aspects, we started it together in Vietnam. When you had your YouTube channel, we were building content together, and then we managed to enroll our first clients together. You already had some connections with some manufacturers. I'm thinking about outdoor products, for instance, furniture. So we could really build up from the inquiries that we get through our respective channels and then content that we are releasing online.
Okay, yeah. So maybe would you be willing to share a couple of recent projects and what they involved?
Yeah, sure. So, for instance, one of the latest one, we send 2 40-feet containers to a tiny island called Tahiti. So it's actually a French island that belonged to France. France used to be, spreading a lot their influence in the 17th, 18th century, and they managed to somehow got the power to a lot of different islands. And those ecosystem of islands are actually very far in the middle of the Indian Ocean. And we managed to ship two containers lately for some furniture, indoor products, and then consumable items. So very simple items that you can find in wholesale markets in Vietnam, but over there, actually those items are valuable because there is a lack of supply in those islands. And then those entrepreneurs reach me out to help them source, do due diligence, and then help them to do mixed container consolidation. So basically put all those different suppliers in 2 containers and send them to the island.
Yeah, it seems like you've arrived in sourcing in Vietnam at a prime time because, as you know, that with the U.S. China trade war, more manufacturers and businesses are looking towards Vietnam. So it's great to see that you can fill that gap, that need.
Yeah, I think now Vietnam is really much the China plus one strategy. People talk about India, people talk about Indonesia for specific product categories, but I think Vietnam is very a good country where you can do basically everything except obviously electronics. Some parts, some plastic parts, it can be more expensive to do them in Vietnam. But for most of the traditional products, Vietnam is a good second source for companies looking to diversify the supply chain outside of China.
Hmm. Okay. All right. So before we close, maybe you can give a couple of pros and cons of living in Vietnam long term, because I think you've been there roughly 8 years, you said.
Yeah, 8 years exactly. So I would start by the pros. I think cost of living, the cost you could probably, if you live in an expat district, so for instance, District 1 in Ho Chi Minh City or Tao Dien, I think the lifestyle that you can get here will be almost the same as what you can get in the tier cities in Europe, for instance. Maybe not the capital city, but from my perspective in France, it could be similar to a lifestyle you can get in Bordeaux, Marseille, or even Lyon, for probably a budget that you will consider 30 to 40% lower than the budget that you have in France. So first, cost of living. Number two, the food. I think Vietnamese food and Vietnamese cuisine is very rich. There is a lot of variety. Either different parts of Vietnam will have their own way of cooking same dishes. So even now, after 8 years, I'm still discovering new tastes, new plates, and then it's a diet that is very healthy. You don't think about food, that are a lot cooked with oil, with a lot of sauce. Here, the sauce will more be the add-on, but most of the food is cooked in a very healthy way. So probably one of the best cuisine you can find in Asia. Then third item, also the weather. Here you have 8 months of hot weather and then 4 months of rain, so rainy season. So you can basically be in t-shirt every day, short if you want. And then Vietnam climate allow you to easily travel either by motorbike, and you can easily reach from Ho Chi Minh City, for instance, hill around Dalat, so some mountain areas or some coastal cities, which allow you to have a really great lifestyle and then entertainment while you can be either working or living here long term.
Okay. All right. Then how about some of the cons, some things that you don't like about living in Vietnam?
So probably some of the cons, I highlight them at the beginning. So the pollution aspect, the noise, can still after the year become something that you can be more concerned about, especially if you want to raise a family. In cities, megalopolis like Ho Chi Minh City or Hanoi, it's true that sometimes you can see a very thick cloud when you wake up from the morning, and then you can feel on the throat, some small, you feel itchy on the throat. And you can have every month maybe 3 to 5 days where you're gonna have heavy pollution, and those days usually your body can be a bit impacted. You cannot drink tap water. You need to also be sure where you are sourcing your products. Some markets you need to go very early in the morning, so you need to adapt, and you need to be doing things like a local. So for instance, if you want to go to local markets, you need to go very early in the morning, or you need to go to malls and then rely on a system of supplies that are more proper.
Okay. All right, Guillaume. Let's end with maybe you can share some of your contacts if people are looking to connect with you.
Yeah, sure, Vin. So I think you can easily type my name, Guillaume Rondin, on Google or Move to Asia, and you can easily find a bunch of different resources, either videos, blogs, or press content that we've been releasing.
All right. Okay, thanks, Guillaume. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, mate.